Hi everyone, I hope you're well. Well, this is my first video since I've had COVID, so I am happy that I am pretty much better. A few little side effects left, but not too serious. And so what I'm going to do today is a daffodil, and there are a couple of reasons for that. One is it's going to be Mother's Day soon, and secondly, our daffodils are all in bloom at the moment, and the little church down the road are having a daffodil festival, and they've asked me to put a little table up, so I'm going to do some daffodils and on glasses and little paintings as well, funny enough, which I've done a couple already and they're rather fun, and I thought they'd be quite easy to do, but I'm a little rusty when it comes to painting and I found it quite challenging. I had to do some practice pieces. Anyway, so I've got this little wine glass similar to the smaller ones that I have been doing, but this one's a more of a white wine glass, and I have already drawn a very basic daffodil onto it. Now you will notice that I started off with a red pen. Let me get that into focus there for you. I started off with a red pen and did a sort of a rough circle, and then as they have 6 petals, I marked off six little lines going to the edge of the circle. And then I drew in basically these little petals, 3 on the upper surface and 3 behind, and then this little very simplified shape of the middle of the flower. And then I've got a little baby one coming up the side, and a typical leaf. So sort of keeping nicely in sympathy with the size and shape of the top of the glass. I think that'll be rather nice, and it'll look nice from the other side, where perhaps at some point it can have a name on it or something like that, or a little message, or even some more daffodils. I might end up at some point adding more daffodils to make it a spectacular daffodil glass. But that is what we're going to do, and I will really enjoy doing this. This is going to be a quick video, a single video in one part, and I hope that you enjoy it. Okay guys, right, let's get on with it. So before I actually start engraving, just in case you are new to watching my videos, just a quick refresher. Good old headband magnifier, which I put over my glasses, so that fits down nicely. It's nice and dusty. These are Optivisor. They are proper jewelers headband magnifiers, and I buy these specifically because they have a very good screw setup that basically once you tighten that will go up and down quite happily. It's not going to flick down. If you buy a cheap knockoff, I find they are dreadful, because you will tighten the sides and then pull them down and up a couple of times, and before you know it, they've loosened and it just drops down by itself, and very, very annoying. So I go for Optivisor. This is very old actually. Definitely the best, in my opinion. And this is not sponsored, by the way. Okay, so on with my glasses as well, and a mask. So I have a dust extractor, so I'm very fortunate, but I still use a mask. And of course, if you put the glasses on top, it's not going to fog up so much. So I also use the water for the purpose of keeping the dust down, and also for lubricating the diamonds. Okay, if I'm using a stone or a rubber, I don't normally use water as well. I usually work dry. And so that's all sorted, and now I'm ready to go. So as you can see, I've got the white material behind the glass so you can see it clearly, and I've got a small green stone here. You can use any little stone really. I like to use a stone because it's not as bright as a diamond, and just very lightly I'm tracing around the edges of the main details. You don't have to worry too much at this stage. It's just rough, and you'll be able to work in and around it. That's why I don't like to use diamond, because diamond is very, very harsh and would make quite a deep cut. So all the outlines done, and cleaning off the permanent marker. Now you can see it clearly against the dark background. This is a sort of a medium size, or relatively large diamond, I suppose. It's good to use a diamond that is larger in an area, as big as possible in the area, without being a little bit dodgy that it's going to go over the edges. So you don't want an enormous diamond, but you don't want a teeny tiny one either. You want to go for one that is a decent size, really, for something like this anyway. So I'm starting with the background petals. As I mentioned earlier, there are 6 petals. There's 3 at the back and then 3 in front of those. So while I'm engraving quite deeply on the outer edge, as I come near the center, I'm flicking it up, and so although to you it looks nice and white, it's not as deep as the edge of the petals. And there's a good reason for this. It's because we are building in layers, quite deep on the edges, so that it's got a really nice 3D feel to it, but not quite as deep as we will be doing the upper petals. So flicking it forwards, well, flicking it towards you. In this case, I've turned the glass so that it is, so I can flick the diamond towards me, just because it is more comfortable. Turning the glass again. Now, these petals have quite deep ridges in the center. So here you can see I am adding some ridges. I'm trying to blend so that you don't have any harsh outlines around the edges of the petals. You can spend much more time on this. I am doing this relatively quickly. This is sped up to 120% of normal speed. So here, now I've slowed this down to show you I am going deeply over the top of the petal that I have just engraved. So where this overlaps, I'm going quite deep, and that gives you the impression that is very much in front of it. So once again, just pulling the diamond towards you for a nice gentle flick. So that area nearer the middle is not deep at all. again, nice and deep over the top of the other petal. And then just blend it in so you don't get a harsh outline. Now, unlike normal, I usually check the lens, but for some reason today I didn't. And so for the majority of this video there is a little a sort of a dullness to the screen, so I do apologize for that. As you can see, the water flicks up quite a lot, and it had flicked up onto the lens and I didn't wipe it off. So it is actually, if only you could have seen the lens, I should have taken a picture of it. It is quite a miracle. It's a very clever camera. It's quite a miracle that you could see anything at all, because the whole lens was spattered with dry white glass. So I am quite impressed and quite relieved that you can see sort of what's going on, albeit not as clearly as you would have. Anyhow, you can see we moved on to the middle of the flower, and I'm engraving deeply. You would call this intaglio engraving of a fashion. It's my kind of an intaglio engraving. It's a little bit like wood carving, I suppose you could say. You know, sort of each layer is partly deep and partly shallow, depending on what is coming up in front of it. So I am giving the impression of the frilly edges, which we will enhance later on, but at the moment I'm just making it deep areas where it is more prominent and flicking it nicely into the middle. This is a very simplified daffodil. Not a particularly serious botanical study. But rather fun. Anyway, as you can see, I'm kind of fluting it into the middle. And already that is quite effective. Bearing in mind there's no shading going on at this point, it's purely with the diamond. But you can see, you know, you're picking up the wet ridges where the light is shining on it. If you have trouble with long strokes like this, it's a good idea to keep your eye on the destination and not on the burr itself. Your burr will automatically go to the destination if that's where you're looking. We used to do a putting challenge when we were training in golf. We looked at the hole, and puttered. Didn't always work though. Oh dear. Anyway, so now you will notice I have left a little gap where it folds over, and that is because this burr is far too fat to be engraving that little area. We will come to it later. Where you'll see that I keep lifting it up and then gently rejoining. Don't try it and do it in one go, because it's not likely you'll be able to. Just be a little bit careful when you rejoin it. So this is the little bud. It's rather nice to add a little baby one to the side. It's lovely and thick down at the bottom of the bowl of the glass, and so you really have quite a lot to play with without being too worried. This glass is a lovely thick crystal, so I am fortunate that I can do this engraving. Don't go quite as deep if you are engraving a thin wine glass. And if you'd like to practice the deeper engraving, put the flower near the bottom of the glass, or choose a flower that maybe is lying at an angle so that you can keep it to the bowl of the glass, and then you've got so much more thickness to play with. So even when it's dry, you can pick up already how deep we've gone. I'm going to show you with a little bit of white tack the relief. There you go, that's rather fun. So now we're going to use the rubber to shade it, and you can see that this little rubber has been working quite hard for me, and I am just turning it over so that I've a bit more life on the top edge. Now you see, by turning it over and screwing too much, you get to the metal bit coming through the middle. So just unscrew it a little bit and tighten that little nut at the bottom. And there you can see that I've got quite a lot of rubber to play with. So amazing instant shadow with this rubber. The drill is not going very fast, and it's probably going about 25,000 RPM. 25 to 30, I would say. And I'm just adding shading mainly where the petals are going underneath. And you can see that you can pick up and flick it out quite easily, because you're going from a deep edge of the part of the flower that's in front of the petal. You can see how all these principles would apply to any flower. So shading on the little bud. And on the leaf. Being very careful not to put the rubber on the outside of any of the flower parts, because it would make a mark on the glass. So you don't want that. So here I have a rubber disc which will catch the ridges and just enhance those edges a little bit more by polishing it a tad more than the grey rubber would have. Just for added contrast on the edges. And here I have a little diamond and some water. So I am going to turn the glass and very, very carefully join the top to the bottom of the leaf. This little diamond will be no thicker than what you imagine the thickness of the leaf to be. So I'm just going to enhance this little frilly bit, carefully blending it in to the rest of it so that it doesn't have just the harsh outline. I'm just looking out for little edges that need some attention. And of course, a signature and the date. A little bit premature because I haven't done the stamens yet. just touching up anything that I can see. Sometimes there's a tiny little bit of the original stone sticking out the edges. So lots of water. And just simple little stamens and things. There's six little ones with sort of elongated heads and one tall one, but I'm not going to add in all 6 here. We'll just pretend that some are not visible, because otherwise it can just look like a crowded mess. So in order for them to stand out a little bit better, I'm just going to flick a bit of a rubber over the top. And instantly that will polish behind what looks like is behind, of course, the little stamens. I could at this point have grabbed a rat's tail to do the little stalks, but quite frankly I'm trying to use the minimum amount of burrs, just so that you can see. I'll show you at the end the few little burrs that we've used for this entire exercise. Once again, just enhancing these frilly bits. And there you have it, a lovely little daffodil. Well, all done and dusted, and I'm all hot and sweaty now. These are the only burrs I used for this exercise: a small green stone, a medium-sized diamond, a rubber bullet basically, and a rubber disc, whatever you've got in your box in the way of rubbers, and a small diamond in the end. And that was all I used. Not tricky, but most enjoyable. Thanks for watching. Bye guys.